Alright, I pulled all the plugs out of the white car. Take a look at them. And I've got the old spark plugs over there too, so take a look at the old ones first. Pretty crusty and nasty. The number one plug is probably the only plug out of all 8 of them that looks normal. So this is kind of what got us going down the road of looking at the injectors. So if you've got, you know, this is the passenger side bank. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're on the passenger side here. So you've got 3 plugs on this side that are just not looking very good. Very dark carbon fouled. And compare that to this number one plug where you can see the white of the porcelain, and it's got a really nice like tannish gray kind of color to it. So that number one plug is almost like textbook perfect. So if you're having an injection problem, you know, if one of your fuel injectors is going bad, this is probably the bad injector on cylinder 1. Because the computer is trying to compensate for that injector, so it ends up screwing up the air-fuel ratio for the other cylinders that are working properly. So coming on to the other side, man, this is almost impossible to film this. You can see how dark and carbon fouled these are. We do have kind of a similar situation because, you know, 5 and 8 are looking kind of nasty, but 6 and 7 look kind of decent. So those are the plugs I took out. I ended up getting new spark plugs. Boy, it's gonna make for one terrible video. Anyways, these are the plugs I put in. So I got brand new plugs. And we did the, you know, I've been messing around with cleaning the fuel injectors and all that. So kind of a similar situation. You know, the plug that came out of cylinder 1 is pretty much textbook perfect. It's got that light grayish color you're looking for. And the rest of these, I mean, they look better than the old plugs did. But as you can see, there's still a difference. So, looks like we definitely made an improvement. And now, you know, plug 5, same deal as number 1. I mean, it damn near looks perfect. It's got that nice grayish color to it. Try zooming in. I mean, that's what you want the plug to look like. So the other three on this side, I mean, 6 and 7 look okay. 8's not bad, but it's still got some crusty wetness going on. I don't know if the camera's picking it up. So I'm just going to clean these off, throw them back in there. But I feel like cleaning those injectors made a pretty big difference. And then I bumped the fuel pressure up. I'm probably at like 50 psi at idle, which after we cleaned the injectors and took it for a ride, I kind of felt like, you know, the car was running a lot better, but it was just lacking power. And so I ended up bumping the fuel pressure up, taking it for a ride, and that made a big difference. But it still feels like towards the top of the rev range, it's kind of, I don't know, it just feels like it's falling on its face a little bit. Like it should pull all the way to 6,000 RPM with no issues. So it seems like once you start getting to 5 grand, kind of starts holding back a little bit. So I don't know, maybe I'm going to need new injectors. See what happens here. I think I'm going to bump the fuel pressure up again. But I mean, I just think this is a good test, you know, getting all the plugs out and taking a look at them. Because I mean, these were just terrible, the ones that came out of there. I'm trying to think. I think the injectors in this car, I think I bought those back in like 01. I got 24 pound-per-hour injectors in here. So, I mean, who knows? They could be getting weak, or they're just, you know, some of them are weak, some of them are strong. You've got an imbalance, you know, and that's just going to kind of wreak havoc with the computer trying to trim the fuel out. The other thing we had happen was a little TFI issue. Now let me grab that stuff. Alright, so here's where I'm at with TFI modules. This one came off the black car. I had a, I think Holly made it. I had a TFI on my white car. I think it was Annihilator or something like that. I don't even think they make it anymore. Anyways, that's on the black car now. So this is the one that came on the black car. The black car has the TFI off of this car, because I bought a new TFI for this one, just figuring, you know, put a new one on there or whatever. So that was probably a bad idea, because I don't know, I guess when it comes to TFIs, if you're not having an issue with the TFI module, just leave it alone. And it seems like these TFI modules are huge problems for these cars. So I think this one came, I ended up buying a new distributor. So this is a module that came off the new distributor. And I can't remember what brand that one is, or I can't even remember who I bought it from. Anyways, last year when we were getting my dad's car ready to go to the track, you know, we were having trouble, and ended up being the fuel pressure regulator, but it was, you know, it didn't want to start, so I was thinking it could have something to do with the TFI. So I ended up buying a TFI module for that car, and we put it on there, and it was just crazy. Like, the tach was just, I mean, the tach was just going crazy. You'd start the car and the tach was all over the place. So, unfortunately, I didn't get that on film. So then playing around with this white car, I was like, oh, well, let's try this TFI module and see what happens. And I'm like expecting this thing to just completely fail, you know? So we put it on here, and car started up, ran, idle, okay. I mean, it still was having the same issues of like wanting to die and all that kind of stuff, but so swapping the TFI didn't really change anything. So when we got done cleaning the injectors, you know, we were messing around, and took the car for another test drive. So like the tach on my dash is broken. Like I ended up damaging that thing when I put the white face gauges in there, which you can't see, maybe, I don't know. Guess I could unlock the door. So with that Excel TFI module in there, you know, we took a ride, everything was cool. Got about a couple miles away from the house, and then like I said, this tack doesn't really work, and like, you know, if you hammer the car, it'll like move and then kind of come back. I mean, it kind of moves sometimes. So out of nowhere with that Excel TFI in there, you know, this tack started getting goofy and I was losing spark. You know, the engine was bucking. And then this tack over here was just going completely crazy. It's jumping all over the place, which it doesn't really do that. So, like, okay, TFI's got to be screwed up. So, I mean, here's the point of that story. You know, this is a brand new TFI module. It's made by Excel. Put it in my dad's car. It immediately, like, just started going crazy. And that's brand new right out of the box. So then, just for giggles, threw it in this thing. Starts up, idles, no problem or whatever. You know, everything's cool. Took it for a ride, and then out of nowhere, I mean, we're just cruising. You know, I was probably at like, I don't know, 1800 in like 4th gear, and the car just started bucking. And then even that was intermittent. So then, you know, obviously turned around, started heading back here, and like the car would be okay, and then it would start bucking out of nowhere, then it'd be fine again. So I mean, these TFIs are kind of, they'll drive you crazy because, you know, they can intermittently work, and some of them will work when they're cold and then fail when they're hot. Some of them will, you know, they'll do goofy things when they're cool, but once they warm up, they're fine. I don't know. These things are all over the place. And then we did a lot of testing with these with the ohm meter. And actually, the one that's on the car failed one of the tests with the ohm meter. I have to go back and look at all that, but, you know, it's like even trying to test these things seems like it's pretty ridiculous. And that kind of goes back to the same issue I had with the coils on my R6. You know, I tested all the coils, ohmed them out, they all passed the test. I put new coils in the bike and it was like a brand new bike. You know, I guess the other thing with that is kind of the same thing with the coils. You know, I didn't test them when they were warm. Like, I didn't take them out of the bike when they were hot, so maybe it would have failed if they were hot. And that's probably the same thing with these TFI modules. You know, I'm sure getting heat in them affects, like, you know, what kind of ohm reading you're going to get on them. So, I don't know, that's where we're at. That TFI that I got in there, you know, I was driving the car yesterday, still having like, you know, yesterday morning the cold start was perfect. Drove it around, no problems, no ignition problems, nothing, no bucking, didn't break up or anything. Now I did probably a good like 35, 40 mile drive with the car, and I mean, it was spot on, and it's making power. And it definitely sounds a lot better too. Like, I don't know, this car makes a very distinct sound when it's running right, and I think the X-pipe makes it easier to tell whether you're in tune or not. So that's why I want to pull these plugs out today. And then, you know, I usually pull the number 5 plug, which is the first plug on the driver's side, just because it's easy to get to. But, you know, the lesson to be learned out of that, like, yeah, it's a good idea to check the plug, kind of figure out what's going on, but you almost have to, you know, pull more than one to get an accurate idea of what's going on, because you could pull one that looks fine and then the other 3 don't look so hot. So that's kind of the thing. I mean, usually when I play around with fuel pressure, or I'm kind of questioning what's going on, I'll pull that number 5 plug. You know, for me, it's just the easiest one to get out of there. And then, especially on a stock Mustang, the number 5 cylinder is kind of notorious for running lean compared to every other cylinder, just the way the intake manifold's shaped. So I mean, you know, this car's got a trick flow intake that flows a lot better, that's a lot more balanced, but if you're running a stock intake, that number 5 cylinder is kind of notorious for running slightly lean compared to the other 7 cylinders. So, yeah, I don't know, I think my next step is going to be pulling the oxygen sensors out of there and taking a look at that. So I'm just looking at what this thing was doing before. Really super dirty, so chances are the O2s are they're probably caked with some kind of poo-poo sauce. So get those things out of there, take a look at that, clean these plugs up and throw them back in there, see if I can figure out what's going on here. I still get the feeling that it's got something to do with the injectors. So we'll see. I'll get those plugs back in and then pull out the O2 sensors. Alright, I got those plugs cleaned up and all that put back together. Got the car up. And these O2 sensors are looking pretty carboned up. So that could be causing a big problem. Seems like between the O2 sensor and the engine coolant temperature sensor, those are like really important sensors as far as, you know, the computer doing fuel trim. So I don't know, I've got these other O2s. I think those are out of the black car. So I think for now I'm just going to throw those sensors in there, and then maybe later on I'll try cleaning these up, test them out, maybe test them before and after cleaning. But for now, I think I'm just going to throw these in there. See what happens. Alright, got the car back on the ground. Those O2s in there. So let's see what she does. Oh, that's pretty good, but cold start hasn't really been an issue. Sounds pretty good. See if we get any condensation. Sounds pretty good. So I'll have to go get some petrol. Take her for a ride, see how she runs. Definitely a good sign though. And hopefully this is it, because kind of running out of options here, so these are pretty carboned up. Don't look too good. Alright guys, took her for a test drive. Running a lot better. So I think, oh, maybe I'll try it right now. Try shutting it down, see how it starts up. Well, looks like we've still got some work to do. I don't know exactly what's going on here. Alright, this thing's been sitting for a couple hours, so figured I'd try a startup on it. Definitely not a cold start, but let's see what happens here. Yeah, cool. Not fixed.